Hey guys, welcome to Stock Talk with Mike. Today I want to give a bit of an update on Nvidia, ticker NVDA. The chip maker is just, I think, a great company. It's one of my highest conviction companies, actually. I was listening to CNBC. Actually, I always listen to CNBC, and Josh Brown was mentioning that he thought Nvidia is a must hold for anyone in the tech space and growth stocks. And I kind of have to agree. It's just been such a phenomenal performer, and it touches on so many huge growth trends and also just performing incredibly well. So I'm going to cover Q2 earnings, my holdings in Nvidia, go over a little bit some of the growth drivers moving forward for Nvidia, and what hedge funds are doing if they're buying or selling Nvidia. So if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to the channel. It'd also be great if you like this video. So first, actually, I just want to show you the performance of Nvidia. Interesting chart here. This is actually a little bit dated. It's a year or two old, but it's the best graphic I have sort of showing the performance of Nvidia over the last 5, 10, 15, and even 20 years. It's just been a phenomenal performer. Obviously, that's not a guaranteed, it doesn't guarantee the success of Nvidia moving forward, but it definitely speaks to how successful Nvidia is. Top left here is the top performing stocks in the S&P 500 over the last 5 years, and Nvidia ranks second. Ironically, AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, a competitor, is the top there over the past 5 years. But Nvidia, 944% over the last 5 years. That's actually higher now with some great performance the last couple. Again, this is a slightly dated. Might even be higher than AMD, I'm not sure. But looking at the last 10 years, this is where Nvidia starts to shine. AMD, I believe, isn't even on this one, but you see Nvidia still ranked in the top 10, the 9th best performer in the S&P 500 over the last 10 years with a 1,515% return. Bottom left, last 15 years, again, Nvidia ranked 10th with a 3,082% return over the past 15 years. And then the last 20 years in the bottom right here, again, Nvidia still ranked 9th with a 6,954% return over the last 20 years, showing up consistently as a top performer over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And again, recently performed incredibly well. Just a phenomenal company and a phenomenal stock to hold. That is really one of those companies that has created generational wealth, and I think will continue to do so. It's still, you have a company that's returned 6,954% in the last 20 years. That's still growing at like 40 to 60%. Just phenomenal. Interestingly, I was looking at this list here in the top performers in the S&P over the last 5 years. And interesting, of these 20 companies listed here, only 2 or 3 of them had an average or below average S&P price to earnings ratio. Most of them were 30 or above or much higher than that, with the case with like Nvidia in the 40s. So kind of interesting that some of these top performing or the top performing stocks are all higher valuation companies. Just something to keep in mind when you're structuring your portfolio. Okay, all right, so I want to move into my holdings on Nvidia. So I hold Nvidia in my growth portfolio. It's my 5th largest holding in my growth portfolio currently. That kind of moves around, obviously, with market fluctuations. It's actually my 6th largest position overall. I also have Amazon is a bit of a larger position than Nvidia currently. That's not in this particular portfolio. And it's been a great performer for me. So these are my current holdings. I first bought Nvidia back in August 16th of 2017. So this is a split adjusted price of $41.18. But again, they did a 4-to-1 split. So that would have been more like $160 a share at the time. And I believe I bought a lot more shares than that, or a lot more value of shares. It's just that as I had 100, 200, 300% return, I trimmed a little off the table and I've added back more recently. So I definitely work around a position, just keeping stocks weighted appropriately in my portfolio. So Nvidia, my initial cost basis, that initial buy, the shares I hold on to, I have a total gain of 380.8% over the span of the past 4 years. So it's been a great performer for me. And even the holdings, I bought again in February 7th of 2019 on a big dip for 30, again, split adjusted for even cheaper at 36.96, and that's up 435.66% for me, those shares. And I bought it even more recently in 2021 on March 4th. So again, only like 4 months ago, 8 shares at $123.99. And I think I did a video about Nvidia around that time, but that was just an absolute great buy. 4 months and it's up 59.67%. So again, performing very well. As for the stock as of late, let's look here. They just reported earnings a couple days ago. So I'm going to talk about that, I believe on the 18th. And the stock did shoot up after earnings, well back over to close to the all-time highs, which are around $208 a share. Currently sitting at nearly $198 a share. But over the last year, it's done very well. It's been on the rise as of late again. And again, looking at a 5-year chart, this is one that's kind of gone straight up to the right. It's been a very good performer. Again, high growth company with a bit steeper valuation, but reasonable. This is a profitable company with good earnings, good cash flow, even pays a small dividend. But again, it's a very volatile at the same time. So it's definitely going to have its moves and its buying opportunities, Nvidia. And again, any pullback Nvidia over any length of time over the past 20 years has been a phenomenal buying opportunity, even as early as or as recently as this past year. So Nvidia, obviously they're a chip maker. They're just got tentacles in so many industries that are just emerging or growing trends. Obviously, they're a massive player with their graphics cards, their GPUs in the gaming space. They're a huge play on AI. It's my opinion that Nvidia is the most pure play, best AI play out there. Augmented and virtual reality space, that whole metaverse thing, they're front runners in that as well. And they have a big role in autonomous driving, self-driving cars as well. Still not a massive revenue driver in that space for them, but obviously huge future potential, and just the continued digitalization and computerization of vehicles, increased software, increased chip needs, whether it's sensors, etc., is only going to be another growth driver for Nvidia. And of course, on the gaming front, their GeForce graphics cards are used by over 200 million gamers. They're by far the front runner in that space. They're the #1 PC gaming by 3x in revenue. So they're a massive GPU vendor for gaming. So they're a huge play on gaming. And I like that it's not agnostic to a console necessarily, or an operating system, or like any computer basically, or any game or anything like that, so that you get tied into with some of these other plays on gaming. So I like that about Nvidia, that it's a more broad-reaching play on the gaming space, and it's continuing to expand. So as I mentioned, other consoles, so obviously in like computers and their graphics cards, but they also power the Nintendo Switch console, for example. Let's see here. And just looking at, so another huge part, so gaming makes up nearly half of Nvidia's revenue. A small revenue driver is obviously cryptocurrency mining, but that's a relatively small use that appears in that line as well. But another huge revenue component for them is they're powering the various data centers out there, and they work with basically every major cloud provider there is out there: Alibaba, Amazon Web Services, Azure, Baidu Cloud, Google, IBM, Oracle, Tencent. So just basically you name it in the cloud, Nvidia is a partner, and they're customers of Nvidia. Just in terms of like visualization, so again, augmented reality, virtual reality, virtual workstations, simulators, etc. Again, Nvidia is a pure far ahead leader in that space as far as chips go, and again, a ton of different partners in that space. And no actual customer of NVIDIA's makes up more than 11% of their revenue. So that's a really good that there's no customer concentration risk with NVIDIA. On the auto side, again, I mentioned autonomous driving, autonomous vehicles. So it's everything from robo-taxis to mapping systems to sensors to software. And some of their autonomous vehicle partners include Toyota, Mercedes-Benz, Volvo. In China, there's Didi, Xpeng, etc. So they got some really strong partnership ecosystems out there building out there. And you hear some of these smaller companies developing a partnership with a major a vehicle OM, and their stock just shoots up. And I have to laugh because you got Nvidia here that basically has components in so many different vehicle manufacturers alone. Never mind, also play on gaming and all these other verticals as well. And as far as like other systems within vehicles as well, again, I talk about the continued expanding computerization of vehicles. NVIDIA is just going to have more opportunity for having more chips in vehicles. So other partners include Audi, BMW, Mercedes, Hyundai. I mentioned Volvo already with autonomous driving. So pretty incredible stuff. As far as their Q2, again, they just reported August 18th, 2021. And it was a record quarter for revenue for them, $6.51 billion, and that's up 68% year over year. They actually provided guidance for Q3 of $6.8 billion, so they're expecting another absolute massive quarter. And they saw all areas of their business firing on all cylinders. It was a record gaming revenue quarter of $3.06 billion, which is up 85%, so massive growth in gaming, and record data center revenue at $2.37 billion, not quite as strong, up 35% year over year. But you have a company here that is over $600 billion market cap, I believe. That's some pretty phenomenal growth for a company of this size. Going forward with NVIDIA, their current PE is about 47.6. So it's a little bit steep, but their forward PE, so they're in their fiscal 2022 right now. So next year, their fiscal 2023, their forward PE is 43.33. So a little bit rich, but I think it's warranted for a company that's growing earnings incredibly quickly and has this massive growth, and also being such a leader in so many different explosive growth industries, whether it's gaming, data centers, autonomous driving, etc. Looking out to 2 years, that puts them at a PE based on expected earnings of 37.8. So a little bit more attractive valuation, but again, that's still relatively rich even looking 2 years out. But again, if you watch this company over the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it's performed exceptionally well. And if you were invested in NVIDIA with a reasonable portfolio allocation, chances are you've had market-beating returns in your entire portfolio. It's just been that kind of a growth beast. And it's always traded reasonably expensive. So keep that in mind as well. Looking at hedge funds, actually, so a lot of Q2 reports have just been released. And major institutions in the second quarter definitely were buying up NVIDIA. It was in the top 10 holdings in Q2 of 350 funds. That's up from 170 the previous quarter. And new positions, increased positions, were up substantially compared to closed and reduced positions. You see, there was 274 new positions, 1,050 increased positions, and only 88 funds closed positions and 824 reduced positions. So definitely a net increase there. So NVIDIA, again, is a company I really like for the long term. It's definitely one of my highest conviction holdings. Don't plan on selling it anytime soon. Any weakness in the stock, I look as a huge buying opportunity, but I think there's just so much demand for NVIDIA's chips, and I just see them having so much opportunity moving forward. And I definitely want exposure to the AI space, and NVIDIA is my biggest play in that industry. I think it's a company you just gotta hold for the long term. I don't sweat the valuation too much. Again, it is profitable and it's a bit rich, but I think it's a company that deserves to be trading at a premium valuation. And from my perspective, is not that expensive given that explosive growth. So that's about all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy investing.